wake up Belize morning vibes. I was in such a rush. I did not introduce Two Cents Cam. Deepest apologies, Two Cents Cam crew. Two Cents Cam was sponsored by Fort Point Security. But we're on point for a guest. Come in, guest. We have brother Doc Curtis BooDoo. I hear one echo in my earpiece. Morning, brother.
Good morning. Good morning, sister. I'm
It's
fine.
good to see you. That blue look good for you. For those who may have missed him, I hear one echo in my earpiece. On Sunday, June 8th, I had brother Doc Curtis BooDoo as our guest on Sunday Review. I asked him to come back because WUB guests different. So this is for we expert when it comes to utilities, water, light, telecommunications. Brother Curtis, tell me how you become so knowledgeable as it relates to utilities in the Caribbean specifically.
Good
Another
morning
here.
to all your listeners, and good morning to everyone in Belize. I'm joining from Trinidad, so it's actually 2 hours later. It's 9:30 a.m. in Trinidad, and it's very rainy. I hope you're blessed with the rain today in Belize as well.
We can leave it and some mosquito too.
Well, we have mosquito. The rain brings the mosquitoes, right? My full-time job is at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, where I lecture. I lecture in the area of renewable energy and electrical engineering. So I think all my experience kind of stems from this base of being involved in this area. In 2016 in Trinidad, we bought an electric bus. The university bought one. It was the first electric bus in CARICOM. And I began to share the experiences with that electric bus throughout the region. And by doing that, I got exposed to individuals in the region in transportation and the electricity sector. And since then, I've been doing some work in the region regarding electric buses, solar energy, energy efficiency, etc. So in a summary, on a nutshell, that is how I got involved in the electricity sector in the region.
What do you do in your home because of the knowledge that you have that you think would be beneficial to other people in Belize and the Caribbean because of your knowledge of utilities, how you engage utilities that if we may know what you know, we'd probably do what you do?
So let me first of all say that the act and the laws that regulate the electricity sector in Trinidad specifically are different for Belize. So we in Trinidad, we also have a state-owned and state-operated utility called TNTEC. And our regulator is called the RIC, or the Regulated Industries Commission. You have the PUC. The RIC Act, as it relates to public consultation, is much more comprehensive and broad compared to the public consultations you would find being delivered by the PUC. Let me just be clear, the PUC are following their remit and what they're asked to do by law in Belize. It's just that the law, as it relates to consultation for electricity rates, for water rates, are different in Trinidad. It allows for extensive consultation. To give you an example, we went through a electricity rate increase exercise in Trinidad about a year and a half ago. And it was for around 2 to 3 months. The regulator visited different communities on a Friday or on a weekend and broadcast these public consultations. You know, I made the joke with you before, sister, that I prefer to watch these consultations than any other soap opera because of the interactions, because it's one of the few times the people get to interact with the government entities, and believe me, they don't hold back. So that experience went on for around 2 months. Because I am an academic, I as well submitted as an individual written comments on the electricity rate increase. The RIC in Trinidad compiled all those comments and the outputs of all those public consultations into a vast document which they published. And in that document, for each comment or question that was asked to them, they responded. They may not have responded sufficiently or to my liking, but they responded. So that gives you a flavor of the consultation and stakeholder involvement we have as it relates to rate increase. And I know it's something that Belizeans, it's high on their mind because that is something that's ongoing in Belize. So there's a difference in the electricity sector there. The other difference, and I should have explained this before I explained this one, is electricity is relatively cheap in Trinidad. It's around 5 US cents per kilowatt hour. I think you pay around 20 US cents in Belize for your electricity. We pay. So the electricity in Trinidad is almost 4 times cheaper. And that is only because we have our own indigenous natural gas. So we extract and process our own natural gas, which we use for power generation. Most of your electricity that is fossil fuel based is imported from Mexico. So you have to pay for that. So that is reflected in the higher costs. So the environment in Trinidad is the electricity sector is a bit different and the regulation is a bit different as it relates to electricity. So I hope that answers your question and sort of giving a background on the 2 different sectors and how they are regulated.
It did. One of the big reveals when you were on Sunday Review is that in the proposal that BEL had put forward for a rate increase, I think they were saying it was like from 40 cents per kilowatt hour Belize money to about 43 cents per kilowatt hour. When you had the conversation with us, you shared that when PUC reviewed it, based on PUC's calculation, it was more like maybe 48 cents, I think. And that was a big, big reveal. No media house caught that, or from the review that I did, caught that. After we had the conversation on Sunday Review, the following Monday, XTV made note of it. And so, like, that's something that was a major concern for me, because most Belizeans that's what we care about, that we have access to utilities that's safe and that it's affordable. We know the cost of living has increased, the cost of everything has increased, except most of our salaries or our wages. So then if I don't know how BEL made an error like that. I give thanks, and Mose made the point, for PUC having a level of autonomy, which is really needed, especially when you're supposed to be looking after the people's interests. And so the fact that PUC caught that, which is their job to catch it, but we still flag that as respect PUC. But then in the media, not having the expertise that you would have, that was not reported in the media, and that's something that we would want the media to report on. So what is it like in Trinidad? Do the media workers have that access of expertise, or they usually rely on you or someone like you?
Thank you for your question, sister. It's a powerful question, actually, a deep question. Let me just correct. It's around 45 cents.
Okay.
Belize was the corrected value by the PUC.
Okay.
I will start off by saying that I could congratulate you and the team here for seeing the need of engaging persons' expertise relating to a sector that you believe you may not have experience in. That's where I want to start off saying. Secondly, the media in Trinidad as well miss critical aspects of certain topics that are very specialized. They do. But they do benefit from Trinidad having 3 universities. And out of the 3 universities, 2 of them are major engineering universities. We are oil and gas economy, and for us to ensure that we have the local expertise, we have 2 large engineering universities. So they are very, they know that they must always engage the professors in these universities for comments and for recommendations, and they do it often. They do make mistakes as well. Things get past them that persons would notice after a while. But rest assured that what you're seeing as a deficiency in Belize is still a deficiency in Trinidad and other CARICOM countries. What I want to say as well is I long for the day when I could log into a Belizean TV show or a radio show and listen to local Belizean technical experts grant you the advice rather than you have to reach out to the Caribbean, myself, and others. And that will all come in time as the University of Belize is empowered, given more resources, and expands its operations to provide this support. It's easy to think about the universities as being a place of learning and teaching, but they are more than that as well. They are a critical stakeholder in your society. The professors and the lecturers play a crucial role in your society. They are the guardrails for your society in terms of making decisions and technical matters that the normal Belizean or the normal media worker does not understand, but is the everyday teaching topic of this particular professor. So you're doing the right thing already by engaging persons you deem as experts, and that's what they do in Trinidad. But it's really up to the local universities, even TVET institutions, to be resourced and be cognizant and have their ears on the ground in Belize as it relates to everyday matters. So I mentioned to you I submitted comments to the rate increase in Trinidad. I did that because I felt it was my responsibility to society, because it's unfair to ask the taxi driver, the coconut vendor, to read through a comprehensive regulatory document that looks at the electricity sector in your country and make a comment that benefits all of us. So that's something that needs to grow in Belize. The University of Belize being empowered, the lecturing staff taking up the opportunity, taking the mantle of responsibility that they do have for society that they live in, and pointing out these aspects. But in the interim, I am happy to help. I did not mention this in my introduction, but I work in Belize on the electric bus project. I've been working on it since 2021. I consider Belize my second home. So until you find these experts locally, you feel free to ask me your questions.
Thankful that we have you. I have to thank my co-host, who is from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Brother Akomotota. He usually finds in 2025, Sunday Review is focusing on the Caribbean region specifically. So he usually has the links for, I would say, Brother Ako, because when I saw the rate increased, I don't mean I read all them pages. One of my European attorneys put it in an AI with all its limitations and its biases, and then it spit out one one-page document, one more relatable for I could share with the public. And so then I'm like, I need somebody with credible and have the expertise. Now, I could say this I could take up all the space to say this. I know there's not another talk show in this country besides Sunday Review that brings the number of academians with credibility because of their knowledge to talk about a specific area of interest. I would love to have more Belizeans, but I have not seen, experienced Belizeans who talk from a critical thinking mind and feel confident in what they say. And I don't know if that's because of the political climate, but I don't have that kind of trust. I mean, that's one general statement for me, but for the most part, that's true for me. So if there's a Belizean who's credible, who is confident, who is knowledgeable, and who is bold to answer the tough questions in any sector. Right now, it's utilities. My number is 671-8050. I want tests to know and say, because my standard of excellence high. You watch the guests that will come past on the review. That's why I could bring this brother here. I don't bring Papa Tempo. Being certified is not enough. You have to be able to think independently on the spot and be correct in your assessment and your response. And I don't find that to be true for a lot of people who have colonial papers, WEs. That are just for me watching the news, listening to conferences, hearing people talking independently. For me, they don't cut my mustard. Anyways, thanks for being fair in your critique, Brother Curtis. You're aware that currently we have an ongoing concern. The national telecommunications company is considering a buyout of the competition in cable, in internet, in telephone communications. My question to you is, in the Caribbean, what's the landscape? Is it the norm to have a competitor in these particular areas? Or are there some Caribbean countries where there's a monopoly?
Yeah. Wow. Good question. So let me preface my answer, sister, by first saying that I consider myself more of an expert in energy and transport than telecom. However, I'll share my experience. I'll share the Trinidadian experience. I'll share my knowledge with the other Caribbean islands, and I'll share an experience in Antigua. Trinidad started off with a state-owned telecommunications provider that had a monopoly. And we had extremely high rates for mobile phones and internet. Digicel entered the region. Digicel, of course, very popular in CARICOM, the smaller islands and Trinidad. And all that changed. I have never seen a transformation of a sector as I did when Digicel entered the Trinidadian market. Our electricity rates, our telecommunication rates dropped. This is both mobile and internet. There were deals given on handsets that was unseen before locally. And all that came because of competition. And Trinidadians easily moved from one provider to the next. In fact, recently, the regulator, we had a situation in Trinidad that if you were using, so the providers are Digicel and TSTT. So in Trinidad, if you had a Digicel phone with a Digicel cell number and you wanted to convert to TSTT, you had to get a new number, right? You couldn't keep your old network number. That has been changed recently by the regulator. So you could take your old number and transfer to a next provider. So that's a recent change. But I have experienced the transformation that occurs when there is competition in the market, personally. Let me go to the other Caribbean islands. Most Caribbean islands have competition as it relates to telecommunication services, mobile phones. So Digicel is present, other entities are present as well. Let me now talk about the situation in Antigua. Antigua and Barbuda has a state-owned telecommunication organization that is responsible for internet and mobile communication. The internet service in Antigua, for a country with a much higher GDP per capita than Belize, and one of the highest GDP per capita in the region, the internet service has a lot of improvement or requires a lot of improvement because there is this monopoly from the state. I have experienced state organizations and ministries complaining about their poor internet connections in Antigua from the state organization. So, whereas I am not an expert in telecommunication, that is my experience from my regional experience in working in energy and transport, that I have seen markets with more than one competitor or not a sole monopoly striving and benefiting the people that live there. I have experienced that, and I've experienced certain markets where there's one provider where it's not competitive, it doesn't bring efficiency, you don't get value for your money as the average person in that market. That's my experience.
And I appreciate that. Another issue I have, when I made the statement earlier about academians, let me frame it specifically because you made a valid point about the use of universities other than learning centers, that the universities are to be more engaged in social issues because that's what they're there for. That's not the norm that believes. It ought to be, but it's not. So that's within a university setting when I made those comments.
Yeah, so let me comment as well, sister. And let me say, one of the comments I think I started off with was the increased resourcing of the university abilities. Their engineering faculty is young. They need more equipment. They need more resources. And as they grow and they are properly resourced, you will have a greater pool of persons you could call on for expertise. And it goes for the social aspect that you're highlighting as well. I'm aware that the teaching load for lecturers at the University of Belize is quite high. And if you spend most of your time teaching and preparing for class, you have to stretch yourself to make time for society, right? So meaning that if you, let's take for example, the regulator's report. If your teaching load is significant and you spend most of your day teaching and your spare time you spend preparing the material to teach, you will have very little time to read a voluminous, technically dense report. So it goes back to the proper resourcing at the universities in Belize. They have to be properly resourced, and you have to realize that one of the core functions of an academic is not only teaching and research, but the service to society. So when BEL or PUC releases any document with any rate increase, there are specialists in Belize that work at the university or otherwise that could comment and provide feedback that is independent and for the better improvement of the society. That's their goal. Their goal is to make the community they live in more comfortable for all. And that only comes with the better resourcing of the university. So I believe in time it will happen. So eventually you'll get that support from academics in Belize in your show. And it'll make your job easier as well, because some of these areas you're not necessarily a specialist at.
You have more hope than me. I feel that
when
it comes to
well,
leadership
in the interim,
in Belize,
you belong to a Caribbean community that you could call on.
A big part of the issue, and I know this is not unique to Belize, is the mindset of leadership. It's a very calcified, enslaved mindset. As someone who taught for a stint at Florida A&M University, and that's how I know make for teach inside a classroom. I make for up on the ground with a popular education. And again, that's why I know engage them, because they have one very colonial mindset. And them just not being able to, so it's one of the first thing. Even as an academician, you ought to be able to talk in a language that people can relate to. You don't have to talk, but at the minute they get a colonial paper, they feel like they only could talk in a technical language. I am trained as, look, stop your bad word. You have one PhD, you say how I could talk to you in a Creole. So once you're from the Caribbean, everyday people listen, make we talk in a language where we could understand one another. So that's one of the things where right away where I rate you for. That I now have to talk to you in English because you understand me. We are just people that talk. You have knowledge, and not only people from Belize that listen. You have knowledge where people from within the Caribbean region want benefit for. So you're more hopeful than me. Make I ask you, because this is one of the things with the academians, what is in the pipeline as far as developing when it comes to utilities, where you excited about, where you did a research fund, well, we don't know about yet, and we know till it hit way, where you think, yeah, make I tell you now, I'll leave it for one who could expect in the future as it relates to utilities.
Yeah, let me talk about Belize first. I know there's a lot of strain on the electricity sector in Belize. I think everyone knows that. You don't need to be an academic to know that in Belize. There are a few projects that's supposed to in the pipeline in Belize I am excited about, and I think Belizeans should be. There's a solar farm project with battery storage that's supposed to the last update I had, it was out for tender. So I do hope that gets awarded soon and deployed. I'm excited by that because when it's completed. I actually forgot the capacity of the solar farm. But when it's completed, it will take up a significant amount of your electricity usage. And that electricity, of course, being generated in Belize, it's local electricity. You don't require the importation of any, it will displace the electricity you import from Mexico, basically. And there's a battery storage that goes with it, so you add flexibility there. And it's actually a large installation for the Caribbean, in the Caribbean context. It's a large battery bank. So it's exciting for me what's going on in Belize, and I have my eyes on it, and fingers crossed. And so, from the many Belizeans that are holding strain on the electricity sector, relief is coming. It just will take some time, but it's something for you to look forward to as that project moves forward. For the Caribbean, I like to introduce new technologies, or I like to see new technologies being introduced. There's a push for offshore wind by stakeholders in the Caribbean, in the small islands, and in Trinidad. It's led by the Caribbean Development Bank and the IDB. So we're looking at a pilot for offshore wind. That personally excites me because there are no offshore wind installations within CARICOM. And this will be its first. And the thing about offshore wind is that you get to install bigger wind turbines. So the bigger they are, the more electricity you could generate. So offshore wind farms give you more electricity because they could be bigger than onshore wind, where you have the wind turbines on land. So that's exciting. And my third exciting part, you could probably see I am excited very easily. My third excitable project is geothermal. So there are currently no geothermal power generated in CARICOM. Well, soon Dominica, very small island that was devastated by hurricane in 2017, actually, they will be starting up their first geothermal power plant. I'm hoping by the end of the year. So that will be the first geothermal power plant within CARICOM. There's a geothermal power plant in Guadeloupe, but Guadeloupe is not a member of CARICOM. They are French overseas territory. But those are the exciting things I look forward to. But Belize is number one on my list, with that solar and battery storage to come.
Give thanks. In Trinidad and Tobago, do they have let's say a public service announcement of continuous knowledge sharing with the citizens about the utilities? Because it's another weakness in Belize. It shouldn't be that BEL is proposing a rate increase, or the National Telecommunication Company is considering a buyout of the competitor, and then Belizeans are like, okay, how does one impact my life? What I need to know. Yeah. These are technical matters. I strongly feel to get adequate and meaningful input from citizens, there has to be continuous knowledge sharing, so that when we're asked to share our position on something, we share it from a position of knowledge, of knowing. Is that the norm in Trinidad and Tobago?
That is. So I mentioned that in the RIC Act, by law, the regulator has to perform public consultation. And each one of the public consultations, they started off with a presentation highlighting how the electricity rates will change and how it will affect you. So by law, they have to do that in Trinidad. It is something that can be adopted in Belize. It's something the government could take up. The government has, I'm not sure if the government has a constitutional majority in Belize, but most definitely they could modify the local PUC Act and broaden and widen the Act to include this level of consultation, so that the people of Belize properly adjudicate and are properly informed on any changes on electricity, water, and telecommunication rates.
Well, before you go, any final thoughts? Anything I never asked you? Anything you want? Make sure Belizeans stay on in toes both as it relates to utilities, Brother Curtis?
I want to say that my project that I work in Belize, I do interact with BEL. And I know they get a lot of stick for obvious reasons. But they are trying their best. They are trying their best. They're working hard. The Ministry of Energy in Belize knows about the problem. They're trying their best. They're working hard. They are the leaders for the solar farm and the battery storage project. So your very hardworking public sector officials are aware of the issue, and they are doing their best at it. It's just that things take time. Things take time to get done in CARICOM countries, right? And
I
when
don't
when you're
impressed with
talking about a
CARICOM
sector
at
like
all at all.
electricity, it's annoying, right? Because it affects you. It affects you. But I just want to say they are working. They are doing their jobs. It's it just takes time. Can they do their jobs faster and more efficiently? Of course. But they are working.
Big thanks, Brother Curtis BooDoo from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. We appreciate the time you took out this morning. You share a lot with this morning. And to come back, please make sure I see you so we could go eat something, brother.
Sure, I should be in Belize soon. Sure.
Take care of yourself. One
Okay, you
love.
take it. Thank you.